I'm a white dude. Does that mean I have to be for Kamala Harris just to prove that I'm not a terrible person? Well, no, but apparently for a lot of white dudes it does, because white dudes for Kamala is a thing. They got a hashtag and everything. And there was even a big Zoom call on Monday. I'll get to that in a sec. But the thing of it is, the party of Sam Brinton, I don't know if you remember him. He's the mustache cross-dressing luggage thief that the Democrats trusted with the nation's nuclear waste for a little while. The Democrats just spent a day or two trying to convince the world that J.D. Vance is too weird to be vice president. And then they went and topped themselves, which I think is one of their kinks, with what had to be the cringiest Zoom call ever. Gentlemen, this thing, I forgot to introduce myself. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green. This is Right Angle with Bill Whittle and Scott Opp, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, the Zoom call featured celebrities you probably saw in movies no less than a decade ago. They had Jeff Bridges, Mark Hamill, Mark Ruffalo, and believe it or not, about 160,000 people on the Zoom call. The New York Times was eager to play along. They said the group, and this is a quote, showed the breadth of Democratic support for her candidacy, getting all these white guys together. Sean Astin, he was there. You might remember him as Samwise from Lord of the Rings. He called it a chance for men to gather to talk about how we feel. And that just made me want to claw my ears out. Scott, as mockable as the whole thing was, with these B-list celebrities showing off, how sensitive they are, I think there's a genius here that we on the right are a little slow to appreciate. Republicans tend to win on policy, I think, but Democrats tend to win on feelings. And this display of feelings raised almost $4 million for the Kamala Harris campaign. What is it that the left sees in this cringy stuff that works?
I think, as we've talked about before, politics is, Hollywood for ugly people, and nobody really likes it except for a very core, little sliver of the populace who we think is huge because we like it. And so we listen to those people, read those people, watch their videos, talk to people like that. But most people aren't like that. I think it's something Donald Trump has realized too. I mean, Donald Trump is not known for policy. Donald Trump is known for how he makes you feel. Now, the way he's trying to make you feel is different than the way Kamala Harris wants you to feel, but essentially it's an emotional response to somebody who is able to get to you at some sort of a fundamentally feelings-based level. It's funny that we would take our cues, or anybody would take their cues from a group of people who have figured out a way to turn dressing up and pretending to be somebody that you're not into a career. I mean, you got to admire that. They're basically just pretenders who now want you to believe that they're people that should be seriously considered, when previously they've made their reputation by convincing you that they are somebody that they are not. It's a great irony, but I don't know why we need to call out ourselves as white people in order to be able to support Kamala Harris. Why wouldn't they just be people who support Kamala Harris? Why?
Oh, well, Scott, I can tell you why. Because the only way to fight racism, if you're a lefty, is to organize people into racial groups.
Is to amp it up, yeah. And it's funny because you've got to, anytime a new candidate comes on the scene, you've got to think, okay, can I support this candidate? I haven't been able to decide yet whether I could support Black Kamala Harris or South Asian Kamala Harris or female Kamala Harris or just person Kamala Harris. So there's really 4 different candidates at least that you can choose from.
With 8 different positions.
Yeah, and they may have different positions, and there are different reasons why you would support each one. I mean, there was a big article, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, about the fact that Kamala Harris's one side of the family is Indian. Not that she has any deep connection with them or anything, but we have a lot of Indian immigrants into the United States who are very smart people, generally very successful people, more prosperous than average, and very politically engaged in the Democratic Party. And it's funny because you say, okay, well, one of them is running, so I must be supporting them. Now, one side of my family is German extraction, and the other side is Scottish. So I'm trying to think, if somebody stood up and said, hey, I want to make a big deal about my German ancestry, would I be going, I don't really even care what that guy thinks, what his policies are, what his ideology is. I'm with him because the German in me really has to find that kind of satisfaction of electing a fellow German. It is so alien to my way of thinking that I would call on my ancestry to be, and we were we weren't shy about that in our family, specifically the Scottish part of it. I didn't grow up with the German side of the family. And the Scottish people, we talked a lot about our Scottish heritage. This was a big deal. But no candidate who stood up and said, I'm a Scot, and therefore you have to vote for me. We wouldn't have gone, okay, well, that's enough for me.
Well, Scott, there is one Scotsman who I would actually amend the Constitution to allow him to become president, and not only president, but president for life, and that's Connor MacLeod, because there can be only one. And talk about a great campaign slogan, president for life. That's really saying something on his case. Bill, I want to talk about the guy who organized this thing, and I feel terrible because I can't remember his name for the life of me, and I even tried looking it up earlier, couldn't find it anywhere. I think his rapper name is Low T. He's got the man bun. I think he last saw the sun never ago. Just everything you expect the White Dudes for Kamala organizer to be is. And I did watch some of his presentation on the Zoom call, and the line that just I don't know, even it made my brain itch. He said masculinity as a trope has been co-opted by the MAGA right. And I don't even know what Mr. Man Bun means when he says as a trope, but here's what I think he got wrong. It's not that the right or Donald Trump or anybody else on our side stole masculinity. I think it's the side that says, I bid you stand, men of the West, and share your feelings, rejected it, didn't they?
Yeah, I took a look. I saw clips of the call myself. And as soon as the call was over, I checked, and it turns out that the National Strategic Soy Reserve is down 16 feet. And there's no sign of it refilling anytime soon. Never in the history of human conflict have so many beta males complained about so much for so little. It was pathetic. And this is what they're trotting out. So first to the celebrities, Evan Sayed has just an absolutely brilliant monologue about how the kind of jobs that the left is good at are jobs where you don't do anything. Yeah. He says they tend to be journalists who don't do anything. Their job is to go out and report on people who do things, and that actors are people who don't do anything. They just pretend to be people who do things so that the people who do things have something to do when they're not doing anything. And he said something that I thought was really, really, really deep. He said, acting is such a fundamentally ridiculous profession that a child can do it. There are child actors. There are no child surgeons. There are no child jet pilots. There are no child lumberjacks. He said that's how unserious it is. I'm a stand-up comic. He said I'm so unserious and so good at doing nothing that I can say I'm going to work now. I'll be back in 10 minutes. So it's fundamentally unserious people. And the guy who was talking about, the masculinity trope, that MAGA has co-opted the masculinity trope. I agree with you completely. MAGA hasn't co-opted the masculinity trope. The democratic progressive ideals have abandoned masculinity as a trait. They've abandoned all of the qualities of it. They call it toxic masculinity. They're all in a hurry to line up and show how down they are with the women's movement. They are beta to the core. The guy looked like 120 pounds, 5'6", who'd have a difficult time, lifting a birthday cake. And if this is what they're trotting out to support Kamala Harris, then I say terrific. And to answer Scott's question about why did they have to be white guys for Kamala, it's because she is selected as, Joe Biden said, I'm going to select a woman of color for my vice president. So those are the rules. The rules are your skin color. That's all that matters. Identity politics is the most pervasively evil,
pernicious,
mind virus that we've seen in this country since the founding. It is racism defined. When they say this is a call for white males, that is the definition of racism, and this is what they embrace. So, look, if there had been people, a little more topical than Mark Ruffalo and Sean Austin leading the charge of the pop culture against, the monolithic Republican thing, I'm not impressed. I'd rather have Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock on my team than Sean Astin and Mark Ruffalo, let's say. But no, I saw it, Steve. It was cringeworthy, and so we know how they're going to run their campaign. It's going to be an identity campaign. It's going to be first woman president campaign. It's going to be first woman of color campaign, and I'm thinking about doing a series on how to fight Kamala Harris, and one of the episodes is going to be get her into deep water, get her into a place where she has to say something of substance. What geopolitical alliances are going to be most important during your first year as president if you are elected? Tell us what countries you would court and why. Those kind of questions. Because when you get her into those kind of questions, then you get answers like, well, Russia is a big country and Ukraine is a small country and it invaded a small country and that's bad. She can, this is how she wants to go. We've seen the campaign ad where she's there with drag queens and so on. Pin her down. Make her own it.
But Bill,
don't let them have both sides.
Steve's point here, or this whole idea, though, I think among people like us, what you just said makes a lot of sense. But I fundamentally don't think people think like us. I think most people will connect more with an emotional story than they will with a political argument. And because they don't know which countries are most important. The average person on the street couldn't say, oh, these are the 3 top countries we need to have. So they don't, even if she gave an answer, they wouldn't know whether it was a good answer or not. So I think we'd be more effective if we can undercut her story and tell a better story on behalf of our candidate.
Well, if you want to start talking about Kamala's story, one of the things that Tulsi Gabbard mentioned was that, and the most shocking thing by far, was that she was keeping people in prison longer than their sentences in order for them to do prison work. Yeah. Okay, that's a powerful sentence. I want to see those people's faces. I want to see them and I want them interviewed, and I want to personalize this. I want somebody who was kept in jail longer than their term to tell me what it's like to be you are now an innocent person, or at the very least you paid your debt to society. Yeah. I want to hear it from them. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to just hear the statement. I want to hear those people saying, what's it like to be in jail for 3 months after your release date because this person decided they wanted more free labor for California. Yeah.
Trump needs to invite some of those guys to one of his rallies, or all of his rallies for the next 98 days.
All of his rallies. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, folks, I can actually sum this up very, very quickly, and I'm not even going to make fun of the soy guys or the low T guys anymore. I want to get to the actors, because whether it's acting or music or sculpture, which I have a genuine love for, I have found no matter what the field is, the less I know about an artist, the easier it is to enjoy their art, because they just tend to be terrible people. Yeah. And even if they didn't start out that way, the money and the fame tends to corrupt people, because we are flawed human beings, and that's the way it goes. I just wish that in the age of social media and massive Zoom calls, they could just manage to make it a little easier for me to know a lot less about them. Is that too much to ask? Apparently it is. All right, that's your right angle on that. Brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. For Bill and Scott, I'm Steve Green. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.